Welcome to my world. I'm Jas Takhar, and I want you to come follow me on my journey as I document the ups and downs of running a business. I've been in sales and service for over 25 years. See, my cup's full now. It's my time to give back to you. The conversations I'm having with guys and gals in the industries of real estate, entrepreneurship, and leadership. Make sure to subscribe, like, comment, and all you have to do now is sit back, relax, and come into my world. Hey, it's the Jas Takhar podcast. How you doing, Laura?
Jas, I'm fantastic.
It's 2021.
Sure is.
We made it.
Just barely.
Just barely. Wow. I am so excited to kick off our year with our guest, this gentleman. I mean, this bio that I'm about to go over, guys, it's so long. It's just amazing. And we're so blessed to have Neil with us. How are you doing today, Neil?
I'm doing great.
I mean, you've helped companies generate more revenue through digital marketing than majority of people. Entrepreneur Magazine has said that you're the number one marketer in the world. President Obama actually recognized you as a top 100 entrepreneur. You work with Amazon, Microsoft, Airbnb, Google, Viacom, NBC, Zappos, General Motors, and one of my favorite companies, Salesforce. I love the CEO there. Does that all sum it up, man? There's so much more.
That sums it up. I think that's pretty much it.
So talk to us a little bit about, how was your 2020, man? Like, how did you not only survive, but thrive in 2020?
Yeah, 2020 wasn't bad. I'm a very transparent person, so I like telling you how it is. When COVID hit, sadly, I had to make layoffs. It wasn't what I wanted to do. Business struggled, especially in marketing, lost a ton of clients. People stopped spending money on software and everything, and they're just like, whoa, we're shutting down. So we had to reshift our business. Lucky in the United States, government has programs to help out people. And then with some of those programs, we're able to start hiring more, bring more people in. That bought us a lot of time and allowed us to get our feet back on track. And we kept pushing forward, and things ended up wrapping up decently well. But luckily for us, government had programs that helped a lot of companies like us out. Because we're also ones too. We're like, if a business tells me, hey, I'm struggling due to COVID and I can't pay you anymore, it's either between you or putting food on the table. I'm not going to tell them to pay me. I don't care what a contract says. Like, I'm just not that kind of person. But at the same time, I know we have staff too, and we have to take care of them. So we try to do our best and find that balance. And I'm okay if my ideal goal and what we optimized for during COVID was not our profitability, but more so making sure as many of our employees were taken care of and our clients were in the best spot that they possibly could be in, so that they weren't struggling as much.
So Neil, this is kind of music to our ears because we essentially ran our organization similarly in 2020. I get the feeling all of your experience prior to this point is what allowed you to be successful throughout the last year. You started a consulting company at 16. That's what I'm reading here. Is that true? And please tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. So when I was 16 years old, I wanted to find a really high paying job. And I was in high school at the time. And you can't get a really high paying job when you don't have a college degree and all this kind of stuff. At least roughly 20 years ago, right? Now times have changed maybe, but 20 years ago, that didn't really exist. If you don't have a college degree and certifications, no one's going to pay you six figures. So while I was trying to find a job online, I couldn't find one that was high paying, but I ran into a lot of job boards that were making a killing. So I was like, they're making good money. If I just create my own job board, make 1% of what they make, I'll be rich. I'll be a millionaire. I quickly created the job board, but I learned over the next 6 months that that's not how the world works. Just copying someone else. You don't just magically make 1% of what they make and you're rich. And when I popped up my job board, no one came to it. And I was like, why is this? It was at that point in life that I learned that you have to do marketing. And I got good at the marketing part. I learned it. I was getting traffic. I still didn't make money with my job board, but I got good at the marketing part. So I decided to just go out there and try to help people with the marketing. Like I would cold call, I'd rush home from school, cold call everyone who's spending money on paid ads and be like, hey, I'll do your marketing for free. If I produce good results, pay me. If not, don't pay me. And like, I started doing things like that, and I started consulting.
Now, like, what does marketing mean to you? Like, it's such a vast word, and
Yeah.
there's digital marketing, and there's relationship marketing. There's so many different types of marketing. What does marketing mean to Neil Patel?
To me, there's two main buckets in marketing. One, you build a brand, right? What does that brand resemble? The story behind it. How do people feel when they hear about your name, your company name, touch your products, all that kind of stuff, right? Or even think about your service or sign up and become a customer. Like, that's all branding. And to me, that's one component of marketing. The other component, which is the bigger component people mainly spend money on, is how much new sales are you generating? If you spend $1, are you making 2 back? And I don't care if it's digital or traditional. When you spend money, you can figure out if you're making money. Like, there's a lot of people who do TV advertisements. They're like, hey, for every dollar we spend, we're making $3, $4, $5 in exchange. There's costs in between, so it's not pure profit, but still, if you spend $1 and you can make more than what you're spending, great, you're doing a good job. And that's how I see marketing.
Now, are you only in the digital space? I actually personally want to get a little bit better understanding of that from your perspective. Like, are you only in like social media, website traffics, or are you still playing in and advising your clients to be in TV and radio?
We only do digital.
Okay.
We'll tell them that they should look at television and stuff if it's a big enough business and we know that there's room there, but we won't do it for them, nor do we charge for that, because that's not our expertise.
Do you think money's being wasted by a lot of organizations? I mean, we used to have a radio show here in Canada. In fact, it was syndicated right across our country here in Canada, and we had that, I'm gonna say, probably for about 5 years. We went away from it 2 years ago and started the podcast, and it's kind of cool for us because it doesn't cost us anything, right? Like, to actually distribute it, I mean, it's minimal. Like, we use Libsyn
here you can even get more relevant audience and more viewership, right? Like,
and why do you think a lot of people just don't see it? Like, and not only major companies that you deal with, but even just as entrepreneurs, people just are not seeing how effective digital marketing can be.
I think more so they don't want to be the first mover, and they don't, the first person through the door is usually the one that gets slaughtered and all bloody, and they're just like, this is risky, I don't know if it's going to happen, I work for a company, I don't know what they're going to think if I push this, when something wrong goes. But I look at it as, you don't have to stop your traditional stuff, do both at the same time. And then if you see it taking off, then slowly shift budgets, or maintain both, or cut off one or the other, right?
So when we're advising some of our clients and people who ask us about our podcast and whatnot, and what we're doing on social media, we tend to say more is more, and being on all the platforms. Do you have any tactical advice for people who are saying to us, like, maybe I should just be on Facebook? I mean, being on Twitter and Instagram and LinkedIn, like, it's all too much. Where do I start? What do I start posting? What's sort of your high level tactical advice for them?
So when you create a piece of content, let's take this one, for example, we're on a podcast. We also have video rolling. One, I can take that video and I can put it on all the social channels that are video based. YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, maybe. I don't know what the limit for length is on TikTok, but you can slice it up. LinkedIn, again, LinkedIn has a 10-minute limit, but you can slice it up, right? And Twitter, and you can just keep going on and on. The second thing I would do is then put on all the podcast syndications, right? Like, you have like the Apple, Google, Spotify, get it out all there. The third thing you can do is transcribe it and have someone adjust it and turn it into a blog post, and then repost it as a blog post on Facebook, LinkedIn, your blog, Medium, and the list goes on and on. And it's not necessarily, the tactic isn't hard, because all you're doing is just re-uploading. The part that people make the mistake on is, creating content's hard, there's too many networks, and there's all this content. Like, no, you just have to create one and just reuse it for all of them.
And what's your theory on, sometimes people will say, well, should I outsource this to another company? We tend to advise people to be doing it themselves. I imagine you would do something similarly.
Yeah, like, depending on your size, if you're really big and you just don't have the resources, or even if you're small and you have other things that you could be spending the time and energy on that's giving you a high ROI, by all means, in that case, go and outsource it. But most people aren't in that situation. So for most people, I tell them, just do it yourself. It's not hard to create a podcast. It doesn't have to be perfect. Your video quality doesn't have to have amazing background. Like, it's not like you guys have a green screen and, you know, $10,000 desk and something that looks cool. Like, none of that shit matters. I think it's overrated. Like, just have a desk, have your phone record, even if the quality is not the best. It's better than nothing.
Don't you find, like, and sometimes even our raw stuff play out a lot better, right? Like right now, there's an intern with me right now who's taking some stories and he'll start tagging you on Instagram and stuff like that. That plays out actually even better, either the raw or the behind the scenes stuff.
It gets more views most of the time from what we're seeing. And it's like, so you're telling me I can spend less money, just throw it up, don't edit it that much, save money, and I'm getting more views. It's like, okay, because that's real. People want to see real stuff. They're tired of interacting with all this bullshit that's all quote unquote studio produced.
And Laura, like when you were talking about some of the obstacles people go through, I think another one that we always come across is, like, we're actually first and foremost a real estate sales organization here, Neil. So we help clients through like their buying process, selling process, and investing process. But what we started doing about 2 years ago is we wanted to get brand awareness. And so we started this podcast. We do exactly what you said. Like, we take this video, rip it into the audio, and we're going to try to get out of this 30-minute conversation, we're going to try to get 20 to 23 pieces of content out of it. When we're telling others and we give away, like, we tell everyone, like, look, the pie's big enough, we're willing to share. So anybody who's watching or listening to this right now, like, just get at us. We'll give you the information, and make sure to check out, like, Neil's website. And there's so much more, like, so much information there. I love that search query that you have where you're able to put in your website and it tells you how your website's performing against your competitors. Awesome job with that. Well, people look at they look at us and they're like, yeah, you have a team of like 7 people. Yeah, but we never started with 7 people. And if you let your brain stop and think about what you don't have, you're not going to be able to attract what you actually want. Like, so if you want to start to produce content, you know, there's wedding photographers and wedding videographers that are not working, generally speaking, on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Like, maybe you can,
and certainly not now at all.
So especially not
right.
now.
That's a super creative idea, dude. I totally agree with you. And I always hear excuses like one of my biggest competitors does over 700 million a year, and they're owned by like some conglomerate that is publicly traded, and they do over 10 billion a year, right? What am I going to say? Oh, I don't have as much money as them. I'm never going to have that kind of money anyways. That's not going to tell me. Just go out there and start, and just go out there and do. And who cares if you're not as good as them or as perfect as them? You got to start somewhere. And then eventually you can end up adapting and make yourself better. What people forget to realize is the bigger organization, the more money they have, typically the slower they'll move. And that's your advantage. Speed, not perfection, speed.
I love that you mentioned that, right? Like, the execution matters. And you're so, like, even us, like, yeah, I mean, we have a team of 40 real estate agents, but and a support staff of 11, and 7 of those 11 is like our media squad. But sometimes it takes a while for us to even move. Like, we're nowhere big against, like, with these larger organizations. But at one time it was just Laura and I. We would do a podcast and just throw it up, and now everyone else on our team wants to touch it. They want to make changes to it. Like, I'm sure you went through that with your growth period as well.
We did, and then eventually you gotta remove some cooks from the kitchen. Not saying fire, just tell them, hey, don't work on this anymore. Don't touch this. And you gotta limit how many touch points there are.
So I want to take us a bit of a higher level now. We were just talking about some tactical stuff. You said in a previous interview that the 2 keys to running a successful business are that you need to be innovative and that you need to learn from your mistakes. So I was hoping you could tell our listeners and viewers about perhaps one of the biggest mistakes you've ever made and what you learned from that experience.
Yeah.
So here, let's narrow it down. In what sector do you want?
Let's go down the on, like, what you did with, like, maybe like in your organization, like a mistake that you made within your organization during the growth period, because a lot of our listeners and viewers are guys and gals that have team members and they want to grow now. They want to get more sales. Essentially, They want to make more money.
So I made a few big mistakes, and I'll give you a few of them. One, I was in the growth phase and I was much smaller. So one of them was, let's say when we were doing sales, I would continually hire salespeople without actually trying stuff out myself. Because when you try it out yourself and you get on the phone and you dial, or you listen to recorded calls, assuming you tell people you're recording them so that way you don't have legal issues, you won't know what objections and issues you're going to have compared to just telling people, hey, just go and do it for me. If you're already hiring someone who's done it before multiple times, sure. But when you're starting off, you may not have the money. Sometimes you just got to pick up the phone yourself and try, and then learn what's working and what's not, and then adapt. And then you can train people so that way they're going to be much better at their job. The other big mistake that we've made over the years is we try doing too many things at once when we're small. So let's say I'm in real estate and I'm selling homes in Toronto and I'm just crushing it. And then I'm like, you know what? Vancouver's another hot city with all the people from China and stuff moving in. So I'm going to also do Vancouver. But Vancouver's all the way on the other side of Canada, right? So you're just like, that's a far distance. But you're like, oh, but it's such a big market. I'm going to do both. But if I'm growing at 300% year over year in Toronto, why would I divert my resources into Vancouver when I'm already growing fast enough in Toronto, and all it's going to do is just slow down my growth in Toronto? So have laser focus until your growth starts slowing down.
We recently had actually the podcast that we released last week was with Jonah Berger, and he spoke about the correlation between behavioral science and marketing. How do you kind of implement these elements in your business, if you do?
Can you repeat the question again?
Yeah, for sure. Like he spoke about the correlation between behavioral science and marketing, like the psychology behind someone making a purchase, clicking on an ad.
Yep.
Like how do you implement those elements in your own strategies?
So we don't really.
Okay.
And here's what I mean by that. In our space in digital, it's very action oriented. Someone Googles cheap laptops, they're looking for a cheap laptop. All you have to do is show them a cheap laptop. Where we do have to work on implementing it, and for most of our businesses, SEO and paid Google ads. We also do quite a bit of social as well. In social, we have to think about behavioral, in which you're targeting people who are interested in cheap laptops or real estate, and you got to create content that educates and persuade them through. But a lot of that's copywriting or video, right? You're creating video using copywriting to persuade them through video messaging or text-based messaging. And then when you look at it for things like a conversion optimization standpoint, we look at what's the traffic sources and what's the intent behind those traffic sources, and how can we make it align. So we don't have to worry too much about the behavioral part, because with the internet, you can just be so specific with your targeting. You can target the people who are already interested in buying from you.
Now, where does someone who's watching or listening to this, like, where do they start? Like, what you just went over a lot of people's head, I'm sure, right? And I'm sure that you've dealt with this in the past. Where does someone get started with Google Ads? Like, I know they can Google how to do a Google ad, but like, where would you advise them to start?
So set up a Google ad campaign, upload any of your customers. When you're setting up a Google ad campaign, it gives you an option to upload existing customers. In essence, you're doing lookalike campaigns, right? You're saying, hey, here are my ideal customers. Here's a pixel on my website. These are the type of customers I want. Here are the keywords, and just go look at some of the other ad copy for other people who are already bidding on these terms, and create something similar, throw it up, spend $50, $100, see what happens. That's it. Don't spend more than that. See what happens.
Could you get a good test done with like $100? Is that something like you could get some data?
You're in, but in real estate you can, because you're doing regional base. So $100 goes a long way.
See, look, for anybody who's watching or listening right now, we're not talking about $100,000. We're talking about $100 test that can open up a massive audience. As Neil mentioned before, when you go digital, you can go right across the world. We're not suggesting that you should, because based on what we were just talking about, like if you're working Toronto really well, like we are, I mean, we do think sometimes, let's go to Vancouver, but we slap ourselves in the face and say, no. Look, like we haven't even conquered Toronto yet. And Toronto's a big, big city. And so I'm actually going personally into the space of digital courses. I've been in sales for 26 years now. Since 12, it's been what I've been doing. It's really where my true passion lies, which is now wanting to teach people how to sell. And we've been working on a course now for the last 3-4 months. We're still another 3-4 months away from it. Is there any tips that you would give to me in terms of
course?
Sorry?
Is this your first course?
My first course. It's the first time I'm coming out with kind of a digital course.
You already spent too much time creating it. Because if you're creating a course, your course may last 6 weeks, 8 weeks. You usually don't want a course to last longer than 8 weeks. When it gets longer than that, even though you think you're providing more value, some people just feel it's overwhelming. Max go 3 months, but usually you want a course to be done within 8 weeks. And you can start releasing what you have. And then as you're getting sales, you can adapt and just finish the rest of the course. But
interesting, because I have about 10. I have about 10 modules, but I don't have 10 completed. I have about 4 completed, maybe.
Yeah, and we were actually thinking about giving people all the courses all at once, like all of the modules. But you're suggesting drip it in.
Interesting.
30-day money back guarantee. If they're not happy, they can cancel. You only gave them 4 modules, so then they haven't got all of it. Or you can do a 7-day trial. They get 1 module, want more, pay for the rest. You can do a lot of fun options there, but I would just get it out. 4 is enough to start.
And how would you price something like that if you go down the like 1 module at a kind of a time in today's space?
No, you're pricing it as if they're buying the whole course.
Okay.
But you're only delivering 1 module each week. So it's using tools like Kajabi. Kajabi is like learning,
like the online platform. Yeah.
Yeah, where you can sell courses. So using tools like Kajabi, you can say, hey, here's all my modules. Just give them 1 a week.
Okay.
You can even do the free trials or the 30-day money back guarantees, and you just have 1 price. And then you can also add in upsells and downsells once you have multiple products and courses, but you're already taking too long. It shouldn't take you 3-4 more months. You're thinking through it too much. You're spending too much time. Get it out there, get feedback, and adjust.
This is so valuable. What we tend to have a problem with here is kind of to your first mistake that you made when you were in growth phase, which is doing too much at once. Like we say yes to every single idea. We try to do everything. And then we're going along and we're getting feedback. But when do you kind of get a sense if something's not working? Like, is it the number of podcast downloads? If you're not at a certain point by a certain time, like let it go. If you don't have enough followers on whatever platform, drop it. Or do you just say like, no, just stay consistent, be patient,
and don't give up? There's a fine line between that, right? Because you
there is a fine line. I look at market size. So if we know podcasting is big, if it's not working out well for me in the first 3 months, I'll still keep going at it and just be persistent. If I know courses are big, I'll just be persistent. But there's so many ideas like you guys have. I take the spaghetti concept. I don't really cook, but when I was a little kid, I was taught by my mom or sister, or in school, I don't know when it was, but someone's like, you throw spaghetti on the wall. If it sticks, it's cooked. If it doesn't stick, it's not cooked.
Yeah.
So I take the concept of spaghetti when I'm doing my marketing, in which I just look at 5-6 different ideas. I'll quickly figure out how I can test them all out within 1 week, literally all of them, throw it against the wall, see which ones stick the best. And that's what I focus on for the next 3, 4, 5, 6 months.
I love that. If you don't mind us asking, my man, because I definitely want to be respectful of your time. What are you focusing on for 2021?
Focusing on improving our software solutions, because through software, we're able to just get a lot of visitors, leads, and just ramping up our content production for video, audio, because it's all working, just do more of it. Right. And those are the main 2 areas. Like, we're not going too crazy and trying too much stuff, because for us, that's already, our hands are pretty much full just doing that.
And were you able to pivot? Because I know you do like a lot of live stuff, and obviously you want to get more and more awareness out there. Like, in terms of not being able to do that, you had to kind of pivot and do everything digital. Like, was that kind of easy for you because you're already in the digital space?
It was. Live stuff was fun. I miss traveling.
I'm sure you did. Do you ever make it out to Toronto?
I do a lot.
Okay, well,
Technically in the last year, but normally I would say a
well,
few
we
times.
would take it as an insult, not that you need us to take you around, but we would take it as an insult if you didn't come. At least let us buy you a drink, coffee, water, whatever your vice is. We would love to host you here in Toronto.
We'll cook them some spaghetti.
There you
I
go.
like that, Laura. You'll cook them the
Yeah.
spaghetti.
Not Jas.
You do not want to try my spaghetti. I'll get you some Indian food here, Neil. I mean, we have some of the
There you
best
go.
Indian food in the world.
Toronto has amazing Indian food.
You know that, my man. Thank you so much. Can you leave just our viewers and our listeners with one tip, man? It can come from a mindset perspective. It can come from a business tactic. I'll leave it to you.
Just do one thing in life. I think we all try to do too much. We all worry about what others think about ourselves. What you should just do is just one thing, throw it out there. Don't give a crap what others think, and just do it for 6 months straight. And I'm talking about something that'll help you grow, whether it's you jumping on sales calls and doing that straight for 6 months, or whether you doing a podcast like you guys are doing and just doing it for 6 months straight. Pick one thing and just do it for 6 months. And don't worry what people think. Don't worry what happens, and just see what happens after 6 months, because you'll get better at it. You'll start getting the results you want. Because most people give up too early.
I love it. I love that you put a time frame on it, and it wasn't like a 6 month sound. It just sounds right to me, like that
Because within the first 2 to 3 months, you'll get a lot better at it, which
right.
you'll start seeing much better results in your second quarter.
And you'll see if you actually even enjoy it.
Yeah.
For the first,
well, you'll know if you enjoyed it in the first week or two. If you don't like it, then just pick something else.
Exactly.
Well, and there's a difference between not liking something and being scared of it, right? Like, so
yes.
After we did our first podcast, it was like, oh, I don't know, that wasn't great, but I kind of feel good after it, right? So there's just that get started, try something new, and then sort of see how you feel, but let it play out over a decent amount of time.
Definitely.
Well, I don't know how many episodes you guys have done on your podcast. Shame on you not knowing.
No, it's okay. We're about 138 or something now.
But you guys gel very well, and it's a very well produced show, right? So from that aspect, I bet you the first show was not as great.
I actually want the viewers and the listeners to go back. I tell them to please go back to the first 3 episodes, because if you're scared now, you'll understand. So were we. And
that's why I say do things for 3 months, because when you do it for 3 months, you'll get good at it. Your second 3 months, you start getting much better results.
Yeah, I think people think that everyone's who's on camera or doing a podcast, that they're naturals at it. Very few people are naturals at this. Everyone says, Jas, you're so good at this. Keep going. But oh my God, the first time that guy was on stage, I almost had to leave. Like, it was so embarrassing. So you're right. Practice, practice, practice.
So true. I got off stage the first time and Laura said, ugh, I think our company's in trouble if that's the Jas who's going to show up. And she said, like, where's the guy who waves his hands and just doesn't care? And I was like, I don't know what happened to me. I froze up there. And once I tapped into understanding that most people are thinking about themselves, they weren't thinking about me and what was going on and what I'm going through. Everything started to open up. And so I appreciate you watching that first one.
Yeah, anytime. And Neil, like, as you said as well, the more authentic you are, the more natural you'll be, and the more people will relate to you, and the more you'll probably enjoy doing it. So that's a fantastic tip. And we so appreciate you taking the time to join us today. Thanks so much.
Thank you guys for having me.
Thanks, Neil.